Alright everyone, it's time to remind people that I have not gotten old and become a fuddy-duddy. And I actually remember what it's like to be young. I'm 35 now, so I'm young-ish, like I've only got a few gray hairs and occasionally still play a video game. But you know, time goes on. Everyone is mortal. Supposedly. I've got a little suggestion though. And this is another nuance that's being lost in the fog of war, mainly over Israel and Palestine, although we've seen the same thing with Ukraine and Russia. Like, there are several European nations in which supposedly liberal societies have literally banned the displaying of the Russian flag. It's a piece of cloth, with three colors on it. It could be that an individual happens to come from Russia, like their family literally, now they were living in Moscow for the last 1,000 years. They're no longer even allowed to display that flag, and it's very, very black and white, the way in which these things work, you may have noticed. So one nation is automatically the villain, and the other one, therefore, by proxy, has to be good. And so Zelensky can be as corrupt as he wants, but he's being compared to Putin, so like he can do whatever and jail priests and suspend elections and stuff, and nobody really has an issue with it. I've got a suggestion though. The most disturbing thing that I'm seeing, other than the killing, of course, the war aspect is worse, I suppose. The most disturbing thing, though, that I'm seeing in non-combatant nations, the United States and elsewhere, is an attempt to crack down on the youth. An attempt to crack down on students using the excuse of uphold Israel or, you know, Slava Ukraini, basically. I don't support this. Again, regardless of what you consider about these particular nations that are fighting one another. For example, there are some people out there who mysteriously have gotten it into their heads that Russia is the good guy. No, it's much more nuanced than that. Russia and Ukraine are basically equivalent states. You have a high degree of corruption, a huge and increasing amount of authoritarianism. At this point, plenty of money laundering and arms trafficking going on both sides of that fucking border. Zelensky and Putin, basically they should just be gay lovers or something because they're very equivalent individuals. The difference is that one of the nations is much larger and has a nuclear stockpile. That's basically it. That's the difference. Hell, a lot of Ukrainians speak Russian on a daily basis. What the fuck? It's a brothers' war in the most literal sense. But students will come out and they'll have a protest in favor of Ukraine, against the war in Ukraine, in favor of Russia, against Russia, hey, fuck Putin or something like that. Anytime that they speak out, though, you end up with this weird cancel culture thing, and I'll get into that particular sub-subject in a second, trying to dox them and shit like that. Look at what's happening, for example, with Israel and Palestine right now. Student groups, by and large, because they tend to be far left, they side with Palestine because Hamas is a left-wing government. It's just for political reasons, but these students genuinely, in many cases, appear to think that they're part of some liberation movement or something like that, and that Hamas isn't just another quasi-state actor with corruption in mind that siphons wealth away from the population like all socialist regimes tend to. Hamas are a bunch of communistic parasites. But that being said, silencing students or doxing them and trying to blacklist them forever because they're part of a student group that happens to make a statement on the subject is too far for me. It smacks of the same kind of cancel culture that normally is heaped upon people like myself that are on the internet and make videos and shit like that. This has been going on for years. What's the difference between silencing them, even if you think their opinion's retarded? What's the difference between doing that and silencing some content creator for offensive content? You're effectively using the label offensive for their own statements, again, mainly in favor of Palestine. More broadly, in some cases, we're seeing people who are quite literally in support of Hamas. But who cares? They didn't shoot anyone. They didn't bomb anyone. That I know of, they're not burning synagogues. Mainly, there was one instance in Germany. For the most part, these people are peaceful individuals. They simply have stupid beliefs. I have a different moniker for it, though, than extremism. Again, being relatively young still. My explanation is just they're fucking young, and so they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I hail from the same camp. Years and years ago, I was mainly more pro-Palestine. When I was back in college, I saw it kind of the same way that they... I mean, I never supported Hamas or anything, but I would have been more likely to be at the Free Palestine rally back in 2008 than I would have been the Hail Israel meeting. I would have been more likely to be at the pro-Palestinian one. As I look at it as, hey, here's a couple million people in the Gaza Strip. They're surrounded by an enormous security wall with guns pointed at them and with limited access to anything in the entire world because Israel surrounds them and therefore effectively controls all the infrastructure. I didn't really have any more nuanced thought than that. Over time, my thought has been these people are incapable of living in peace at all, and so we should just vacate the region. They're going to slaughter each other. There's nothing we can do about it. It's sad, and unfortunate, but it's ultimately inevitable, and we're wasting time, money, and lives bothering to get involved. But back then, I saw it more in the sense that, like, the college kids today, by and large, see it. And that's just because they're college kids. Yes, there are plenty of leftoid agitators on college campuses that are going to try to convince them that, no, really, Hamas aren't really the bad guys here. Just ignore that footage of them burning somebody alive or whatever, and hitting the synagogue with rockets. Just ignore that. Israel is a colonizer. That's their new term for it. And therefore, any action against them is justified even if it kills civilians. That's basically the premise in a nutshell. Most of these individuals will get past that lack of nuance in time. When people talk about like college indoctrination, well, you go to college, you end up becoming a commie. Oh, really? I went to UVM. I went to Groovy UV with the weed and the Birkenstocks and all of the West Coast trust funders from the upper middle class, which pissed me off, and I called them flatlanders behind their back. Although the moniker really more applies to people from certain parts of New England. Anyway, getting past the nuance there, and I voted for Obama in 2008 and all of this other stuff. Do I seem left-wing to you? Other than on a few social issues that I find myself at big disagreement with so-called conservatives, yeah, no. I think I like guns and keeping my own money far too much for that. There is hope for people after all. I say let them speak. If I say let everyone speak, I don't even care if they openly promote extremism. I don't care if they say, oh, Osama was actually justified. I don't give a shit. Number one, because I'm not a fucking snowflake getting offended at everything under the sun, especially when it doesn't directly involve me. Secondly, because again, if someone wants to have a non-nuanced opinion and sound stupid in the process, I think that we should allow them to speak. We should encourage them to speak more, because they turn people off from their cause. I don't understand, by the way, the idea of silencing people in general, because normally when you're silencing someone, it's because they have a bad take that's so bad they're probably going to turn other people off from their actual argument. So I don't see why all the pro-Israelis out there are trying to silence the college kids because they have Palestinian flags. Most of them are not actually praising Hamas. Those that are, well, you know, you probably choose not to hire them as a pizza delivery boy. That's your choice. It's a private business. They can do what they want, unless they happen to be Twitter, of course, or new tech. But silencing them isn't the way to go about it. How do you defend, by the way, liberality, democracy, all the other fucking slogan-eared buzz terms by silencing people? That's exactly the opposite point that the American founding actually dealt with in the first place. There's a reason why the First Amendment went first. It even went before guns, and the founders loved those. Yes, they would have wanted an AR-15, they just would have thought that it was a little bit underpowered. Probably would have been more 308 or 30-06 men myself, in my own belief. There's a reason why free speech is the first thing there. The ability to express oneself. And no, I don't mean, hey, you can speak as you want. But we have the right to publish a list of names associated with the student group and openly cajoling every business in the country to not employ you. Well, you take taxpayer money if you're a university. So no, I don't believe that those lists should be published. No, I also don't believe in doxing. I mean, some of us have our private info out there by choice, and other people want to be private. I don't agree with that either. Let the students speak. If what they're saying is stupid and you genuinely believe that it's stupid and extreme, then they're not going to get any traction anyway, so stop worrying. And if you are still trying to silence them, it's probably because you are worried about what they have to say. Don't be a fucking fuddy-duddy and start supporting censorship because this time it's different. This particular speech goes over the line. Yeah, every other instance, every other iteration where everyone else was saying the same exact thing doesn't count. This time it's different. Why? Because it involves Israel? I think that that's the reason. And the nation that shall not be criticized, I suppose. When Biden comes out and says something mild about Netanyahu, people shit their pants. Donald Trump criticized Netanyahu for lack of response. People are pretending that he supports Hezbollah. You've lost your fucking mind. That's about all. Peace out.